Hello and welcome to Top Story. Day 6 of those protests in Egypt, and the world is still waiting to see whether the army will accept the will of the people or remain loyal to President Hosni Mubarak. This only 2 weeks after the collapse of the Tunisian government led by President Ben Ali. For the region, the toppling of Mubarak would become a Berlin Wall moment for the Middle East. Events in Cairo are being nervously watched by those who rule countries such as Syria, Jordan, Libya, Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Generation Facebook is having its say, and in the process, revolutionizing the Arab world. Joining me now to talk about this is Samir Eitar, the editor-in-chief of Le Monde's Arab Diplomacy edition here in Paris. Samir, thank you so much for joining us. Let me start by asking you about what's going on in Egypt. Is the army, do you think, going to continue with its support of President Mubarak, or is it going to listen to what the people are saying?
I think they are very embarrassed, both that, let's say, from a US point of view, President Obama set the sign that there should be a transition, which means the regime has to change. And he called everybody in the Middle East, all the major leaders, to explain that there will be a change. And now, as they are in the streets, and as the Egyptians believe that the army is the only force that can maintain, let's say, national unity and the country, and etc., they have to deal with the people. All the game is how the transition would be made. Will it be made with Mubarak, which I doubt, or with some kind of bargain between, let's say, the demonstrators having now a clear leadership, means sending somebody talking in their name, most of them, al-Baradei, and the army to handle the transition period. I think this is what we're happening and what we are waiting for in an atmosphere, like you said, it's the Berlin Wall. But the question is, Berlin Wall between what word and what other word?
The old guard versus the much younger guard.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because the second major question is these revolutions in Tunisia or Egypt revolutions for freedom or social justice, or both? In Tunisia, if you take what is happening today, it's more freedom than social justice. I'm not sure that the guys that struck the revolution, that started the revolution, the guy who burned himself, will be very happy with the outcome, because we don't see, let's say, the urgent work for the social activity, while we will see the change of the constitution, the formation of the parties, and etc. It is urgent that a social policy will be made. If you take another issue, which means the money of the family of Ben Ali, the Trabelsi, and etc., they put it in an escrow account, a waiting account in a bank, all the stakes in very big companies. I would be in favor of nationalization of these stakes, because the government will need resources to go and make the social policies very urgently.
Coming back to Egypt, we've now got a situation where the man you just mentioned, Mohamed El-Baradei, the proclaimed opposition leader, who's doing his bit now to pull together some sort of unity government that could step in if indeed the Mubarak government does topple. Do you think he has enough popular support on the street? Because he has a very strong international reputation, but he's not that well known domestically, is he?
Yeah, sure. This will be a challenge, linked somehow to my question earlier on freedom or social justice. But the Arab countries had not experienced really democracy without, on the exception of Lebanon, but Lebanon is somehow have to tackle its confessional problems. Forming a government, taking all the political forces and having a clear program, at least for a transition period, is not an easy task. Of course, Egypt had a lot of experts, a lot of good guys, a lot of respected guys who were not involved in the regime, or who did not profit too much from the regime. And we can have an amnesty and forget about some of the dirty things. But it is a real challenge to have a government who has a clear line where to go.
Now, if Mubarak does step down, How will countries such as Libya and Saudi Arabia and other nations in the region react?
This is a good question, because I had a discussion with Tunisians linked to, let's say, the leaders, the new leaders, and etc. And they said, we want to make a country friendly to the US with a real democracy and etc. and care about nothing. What I was saying, that don't you think that your revolution will spread somehow and will make fears in Libya and Algeria? I said, look, your example is not acceptable for Mr. Gaddafi. So he will make everything, even if you don't, let's say, touch him in any way, he will make everything to break your revolution. And they look astonished. Now Mr. Gaddafi has to deal with two issues. Means he is cornered by Tunisia from one side and by Egypt from the other side.
Generation Facebook, as I say, is clearly having its says, and it's not surprising given the average age in many Arab countries is around 25 and under. Why did the Arab leadership fail to read the importance of social media? I mean, there's been a clear disconnect between the Arab leadership and those young people.
They were too confident. There was an Arab exception. Nothing like happened in the Arab countries like what was happening in Latin America since a time, where the youngs, the social movement, took in some places the lead and led to other systems, whatever they are. Here, in most of the Arab countries, look at the list, you have very old guard, people wanting to have their power and to be in power for 20 years, 30 years, some more. And these guys have no idea about how the youngs speak. The second issue is that the political parties are as old. Look at the Wafd, look at even the Muslim Brotherhood, and etc. What is surprising in these revolutions is that the youngs were mature. They protected the museum and called the army to protect the museum. They knew how to go and play the game.
They knew how to organize themselves, didn't they?
Yes, and I think that the social science experts have to analyze these kind of phenomena on the long run and understand how the movement can go and spread in this way. Of course, you have to have a ground of miscontent, of people pissed off, of something to have this propagation of the things. But the youngs are much more mature and politicized than anybody could imagine.
Samir Aish, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you so much. And that's it for this edition of Top Story. Join us tomorrow for another program. Until then, goodbye.